Are you finding yourself stuck in a really dysfunctional team and ready to make it better because you can't afford the lost productivity and you certainly can't abide the horrible, stressful, yucky conflict? Well, here's some counterintuitive advice. If you're experiencing a really bad team dynamic, poor interpersonal relationships, eroding trust, disengagement, just a lot of friction, well, you might want to jump in and start talking about the dynamics and everybody's behavior. I'm going to encourage you to wait. Don't do that first. Don't start there. When you start with talking about, well, when you do this, it affects me this way. When you get into that stuff, first of all, people's defenses go right up because you have to be pretty vulnerable to hear that kind of feedback about the impact of your behavior on others. And I also find people tend not to wade into that conversation very constructively. There's lots of like, well, you did this and when, and that's not going to help anything. So if we start with a conversation about behavior and team dynamics, we tend to create those walls and not be able to get very far. If, on the other hand, you start that conversation with a conversation about the purpose of the team, the mandate of the team, and you focus on alignment to the ultimate mandate of the team first, you're going to see you open up a much more constructive conversation that you can take a lot further. So when you start with questions about what is the business counting on us to achieve, what are the most important outcomes we have to produce, those kinds of questions. When you start there, first of all, the answers to those questions are often changing and evolving because of things that are new and different and trends in the external environment. So to be able to say, we need to change because the coming recession means we need to do something different, it's much easier to attribute a change in your team to something outside the team. It's not that you were doing anything wrong, but the world is changing. We need to adapt. Well, that's a less critical way to come at it, less judgmental, and you're much less likely to evoke people's defensiveness. So that's one reason that it's really, really good to start with those questions about how is the world changing? How does our team need to deliver something different? The second is that it's just that kind of a conversation that seems more strategic, more businessy, is going to relax people, that put their shoulders down a couple inches, because it's not as vulnerable as wading into a conversation about who did what to whom and who's to blame. So start with that conversation about what is our team here to do. Another reason to do that is that in my experience as a team facilitator, a tremendous number of things that show up or manifest as trust issues on teams, all you can trace them back to we didn't have the same expectations. And when you didn't have the same expectation as me, you disappointed me, you let me down, I don't trust you anymore. But it's not because the person did something with low integrity or they weren't capable of delivering. It's that they didn't have the same expectations. They weren't aligned on what was the most important priority. So if something's really important to me and less important to you and you fail to deliver, I'm going to think you're not reliable, not dependable, not trustworthy, when really it's actually kind of a failing of the boss in not getting everyone aligned about which priorities come first. So all of that to say that if you have a dysfunctional team, start by talking about what does our team need to accomplish? What are we here to do? Then the trick is that you can actually morph that conversation toward, okay, well, if that's what we need to accomplish, how do we need to behave differently? Now you've actually made your way to the underlying team dynamics issues. But the good news is once you've talked about what you need to accomplish, the light bulbs are going to start going on. People are going to start to realize, oh, so I can't behave this way, or I need to do this, or more of this and less of that. The epiphanies are going to start to happen without you having to call it out. And when you do get to that question about, okay, how do we need to behave differently if that's what we have to deliver, it's going to be a much easier, less defensive conversation. So a little counterintuitive advice: if you're feeling a lot of friction on your team, the team dynamics seem really unhealthy, don't start there. Start instead with conversations about what you need to accomplish. Getting aligned, addressing any of the trust issues that come from gaps in expectations is a much safer and better place to start to get the conversation rolling. if you have those team dynamics issues, interpersonal issues, here are some tips about how to get out of a conflict that's really personal.